When you're young and get into motorcycling with passion, you often think of converting whatever weakling of a commuter motorcycle you have into something that's big and imposing. And that's where the aftermarket hunt for frankly badly built body panels, clip-on bars and whatever have you starts. But what's endearing about this exercise is the reflection of the market needs, and that is what the manufacturers catch on to make products which are desirable. And the Zontes 350X is precisely one such motorcycle. It's got a fluffy bodywork which is wrapped around an otherwise middle-of-the-road engine. What about the 350X then? Firstly, I think Zontes has done a fantastic job with the styling of this thing. It's not necessarily going to be called pretty in many a vocabulary, but it does get heads turning. We had people poking our shoulders at traffic lights and asking all sorts of questions. We had folks in the office ask us about this motorcycle, and even some passers-by, they commented that this looks like a 1000cc motorcycle. So that's half the battle won already, because looks are very important, and the 350X has really done fantastically well in that department. The front is where the most amount of action takes place, and it's also the busiest part of the motorcycle. It's not one fluid construction, instead, it is a three-part design. The top part of the front flows from this pointy beak all the way around the fuel tank as this plastic element, and then is the midsection which kind of breaks the bulk up and it just goes into the body rearward. And then is the bottom part, which is essentially the fairing, which kind of ends just a little ahead of the engine itself. The end result of all these three coming together is very peculiar but very striking. In fact, this almost has that same sharp and edgy vibe that Kawasaki's of this type too. We saw one 350X with green graphics. This one, of course, has orange stickers on it. But it is going to be very easy for people to mistake that one, the one with green graphics, for a Kawasaki. One bit though, and I know this is going to sound a bit obtuse, when you look at the bike from the front three-quarter, especially with the projector lamp on, because it's mounted so down low, this almost gives you a look of a maxi scooter sometimes, and I know that is extremely funny as well. The rest of the bodywork also looks pretty good, and the highlight is the twin exhaust design. Personally, I think the MV Agusta-like exhausts, they look better on the 350R because it just suits the naked street bike personality a lot more. But even in this form, the touring design, it's really not all that out of place. Speaking of the directional changes, there's a bit of a peculiar feel that I sensed. Now, you often get a good sense of the responsiveness of a bike from underneath your bottom. The 350X has a fair amount of heft on its wheels, and you do feel that as well, especially around the midsection of the motorcycle when going through especially fast transitions. It is not as light-footed as, say, a KTM when making sudden directional changes at speed. And it does not matter much because when you get going, even at low speeds, when you're making slow turns, this thing is going to turn very well and it's going to retain its line along a continuous arc. But it's more about the sudden swerves that you do on the bike. That's where you feel like the back is a little slow to respond. But there is an upside to it as well. The setup feels biased towards stability and the bike feels extremely solid at high speeds. The steering is also very friendly. The response from the handlebar is very intuitive and progressive. And that's chiefly where you get the confidence of riding this thing from. It's got a pretty balanced chassis and the suspension tuning is also pretty okay. The bike rides bumps and the general imperfections of the road surface very, very well. And we did not really have any issues per se. It never felt like the forks are going to run out of compression, and they generally absorbed everything in a very confident manner. But I think the seats could be a little better. Right now they just feel a tad too stiff, and doing long hours or long distances on this thing will definitely be a little pain-inducing. Our first experience with this 348cc single-cylinder dual-cam construction was when we rode the 350R. That street-naked form factor works really well, and this engine suits the personality of that motorcycle very nicely. The engine, well, it's okay. Nothing great, but nothing to complain about either. And the power it makes is just fine, 39 horsepower. But the 39 horses that it makes, that's produced right at the red line of 9,500 RPM. The gear ratios, that's also pretty well judged and very well sorted. It has enough urgency in the lower gears and enough flexibility in the higher gears. So it is not going to put a lot of stress on the engine, and that's very, very crucial when you go touring on such a motorcycle. You will be able to ride between 100 to 120 kilometers per hour all day long comfortably. And we were trying to max it out. I could not take it beyond 140, but I reckon a lighter rider will be able to add a few more clicks to that figure. A word on the adjustable screen. Now, wind buffeting is a real issue on open roads, especially when you're going at a fair click. And this one did not seem to be doing all that great a job at containing it. I tried the windscreen at its raised level and also when it's completely tucked down. And frankly, I prefer the tucked down level a little bit more. It really does not make all that much of a difference whether it's raised or not. But just that very, very slight difference, because I think it's just aerodynamically a little bit more efficient when it's completely tucked down. While largely the bike feels fine, it's the general sense of quality that pulls it down. Certain plastic panels feel a little low rent, and the manufacturer would do very well to give it a proper steel tank. Summing up the Zontes 350X reminds me of how we felt with the 350R. I have very similar thoughts here as well. It's a very competent motorcycle and it brings that big bike feel into the 300 to 400cc category. It's got the looks completely nailed and the design does the heavy lifting for the product in selling this to the people. It's even got threads over here at the end plate of the grab rail for storage box or panniers and stuff like that, and that further cements the touring credentials of this product. All the other attributes and the mechanical bits are not too bad either, and it almost gives you a sense that had it been a Bajaj or a TVS or a Hero MotoCorp product, this would have been flying off the shelves. That's where the most amount of work needs to be done. That's making Zontes into a desirable brand, because the products are really not that bad.